Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott, I'm the Empire of Stomaria, and today I want to ask the question, just what is a micronation? So this particular question and our own answer to it, I think is going to ruffle a lot of feathers, and it's going to cause potentially a bit of a stir in some circles. And I think this, more than anything, probably speaks to the fragility of the micronational community at large. It speaks to the emotional attachment that a lot of people have for their own respective micronations. And if those definitions, if that identity is somehow threatened by anyone externally or within the community itself, then they do tend to get very defensive and lash out, regardless of whether or not what we're talking about is from our own perspective, or regardless of whether or not we're talking about something that is objectively true. This doesn't seem to hold water for a lot of people for one reason or another. And I think this is particularly true of perhaps what I would define as the old guard, in that micronations that are well-known, well-established, but would not fit the definition of a micronation from our own perspective, which I'll get onto in a moment. But before I get into all that, I thought it would be quite an interesting conversation to have in putting the question out there. So I would ask you, what do you consider to be a micronation, and how is your own micronation coming along in terms of accomplishing what you define a micronation to be? So, let me know in the comment section below or whatever else, because I'd be interested in knowing what other people define as a micronation. And again, before I get into the meat of this question, there are obviously the immediate caveats that I have to go through, in that, again, this is our definition of a micronation. I have made videos before, and have been quite outspoken elsewhere on social media in particular, about the right of the individual to define a micronation however they say fit, in the sense that if someone wants to define themselves as a micronation, or someone wants to define a particular entity or organization or group as a micronation, even if I wanted to have some control over that, I am no arbiter of what is and isn't a micronation. Nobody is an arbiter of what is and isn't a micronation. And this is both a blessing and a curse, because you do have an enormous spectrum of individuals and people that define themselves as micronations, but they don't fit the definitions that other people would give them, including ourselves. And this is why we don't associate or affiliate with large swathes of the micronational community, because while they can describe themselves as micronations or a part of the community at large, if they so wish, every micronation has the right to not affiliate, associate, or be involved with those micronations, or those self-defined micronations, because they may not be accomplishing the same things. They might not be striving to do something that is in line with that micronation's values and ideals. They might be, a meme micronation, they might be a single issue micronation, they might be a micronation that's based solely online, they might be a micronation that that's run by children or adolescents, they might be a micronation that is promoting an ideology which is either universally reviled or reviled in some circles. There is no way in which you can tell someone that they're not a micronation, in the sense that they will exist if they want to exist. But you do have the power, the authority, and the right to just not associate with it. And that is the path that we have chosen, and have had this position for some years now, arguably since our inception. We've not sought to affiliate with large swathes of the community, because large swathes of the community just aren't interested in what we're doing and what we're striving to do. And what we're doing and what we're striving to do is, as far as we're concerned, one of the purest forms of what you would define as a micronation, in that this is what I suspect a large part of the wider world would imagine that a micronation is, and what a micronation is striving to do. But we'll get all into that in a minute. So yeah, I suppose that's the introduction. Now, I don't like walking on eggshells or anything like this, but I think it's important, just so people don't get as immediately upset with this particular kind of content. Because I said, people can get very overly sensitive about these sorts of things. They sort of hark on about secessionists and simulationists, and how one should be destroyed and one should be excluded from the community at large. And there's these groups or campaigns that flare up time and again, trying to purify the micronational community at large, and other fruitless endeavours. And I just don't think it's worth anyone's time. Even discussing it is a bit pointless, frankly. I've made a video on this before, begrudgingly, frankly. But it really is a pointless conversation to have. If anyone wants to define themselves as a micronation, regardless of who they are, and what they stand for, let them. You don't have to affiliate with it. You don't have to associate with it. You don't have to acknowledge its existence. That is the approach that we take, and that is the approach that I suspect a lot of micronations would do well to replicate and emulate, because trying to convince people that they're not a micronation, or trying to force others to join your attempts to exclude others from the wider community, it really is just a pointless endeavour, and you'd be better off spending your time and energy elsewhere. So, with all of that said, what is a micronation from the perspective of the Empire of Stomaria? So, a micronation, for us, is an entity that doesn't just claim sovereignty, but is striving to become sovereign. Now, this is a very important distinction to make. Anyone can claim to be sovereign, anyone. And I think this is part of the problem, because claiming sovereignty is a case of, I could claim a public park, and that would be it. That'd be the extent of it. And for a lot of people, that's the start and the end of micronationalism for them. You have claimed to be sovereign, you are therefore a micronation. And that is as far as it goes. That is as far as their interests lie. And then they proceed to do their usual, changing of the flag, changing of the name, printing off bits of paper at home, raiding Discord servers, announcing 10,000 citizens have been recruited because they asked people in a town and no one said no, or something to that effect. Declaring some sort of war or sanctions or investigations against someone else, or building an army, and all that jazz. I mean, these are the sorts of micronations and the activities that they engage with that we don't affiliate or associate with, and for good reason. But to bring back onto the point that I'm trying to make, is that simply claiming to be sovereign doesn't mean anything. Now, striving to be sovereign, striving to establish a genuine nation state, striving to become more self-reliant, striving to attain greater levels of self-determination, striving to build a cultural identity that is unique or different from the macronation that you are based in. These are all things that I have a lot of time and respect for. And these are the hallmarks, I think, of what a micronation is, or what micronationalism should be. Because you do have, as I say, on the one side of the spectrum, you have people that claim land. I mean, even if they own the land, they might just claim the land and just leave it at that. But for the most part, it's people that are claiming, their bedroom, or a public park, or a different planet, or some unreachable and unattainable plot of land, on the other side of the world, or an island in the middle of the Pacific that they'll never see. And they'll claim this and then engage in all kinds of frivolous, pointless activities, which other micronations have done 10,000 times over, and always leads to the same sort of tedious, boring results, which is, and inevitably leads to their eventual inactivity, dissolution, or complete meltdown from a lack of actual genuine attempts to accomplish anything. So that's one side of the spectrum. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you would have, again, what I would define as what the old guard, I suppose, where they've, either taken their own land, or they've claimed lands which they have no authority or control over to start with, and they've said, yep, we're a sovereign entity. But then that's as far as it goes. And this is the issue that I have with a lot of the more established, better-known micronations of the world. And this is why I've never sought to affiliate Stomaria with that part of the community. We've never attempted to contact Molossia or Ladonia or Westarctica, or, when it was around, the Principality of Hutt River, or the Princedom of Hutt River, or whatever it was called. But we've never sought to affiliate with the big branded names out there, because they're not looking to do what we're looking to do. They're not interested in the establishment of real-world communities. They're not interested in establishing a more a community that strives to become more self-reliant, that is attaining greater levels of self-determination, that is striving to become a genuine cultural identity in its own right. They're just not striving for that. And when I'm talking about this, I'm not saying that we're going to be able to accomplish this in a matter of years or decades even. This is going to be, ongoing generational endeavor and project. And this is something that I think a lot of people struggle to get their head around, in that just because you cannot necessarily attain genuine statehood, genuine recognition from macronational governments as an independent entity, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try. And I think this is where people get confused. Making tiny, tiny little steps towards building that reality, that is what we are interested in. And this is what we look for when we look at micronations and ask ourselves whether or not we would want to affiliate with them. Is this something that they are genuinely interested in? Is this something that they are genuinely attempting? Is this something that they will genuinely have the capacity or the resources to eventually take to the next level? Because if the answer is no, then what is the point in affiliation or association with that micronation? And as I said, a lot of the old guard micronations that I mentioned, and many others beyond that, they've fallen, I think, into a trap, I suppose, is the only way I could define it, where they've claimed the sovereignty of their micronation. They've said that, yes, they are an independent entity, which they obviously aren't, and then they proceeded to spend their time, signing up citizens who have applied online and, attend, some sort of micronational meeting or event once or twice a year, hand out medals, invent new orders or new awards to give to someone else, patting each other on the back. And you can see them all streaming with all of their, all of their bling, all of the medals that they've won or been awarded, either by other micronational leaders or quite frequently by themselves. And they've just said, we exist. And then they have these interviews with more mainstream media outlets, and this is why they're well known, because these sort of, I don't know, quirkier elements, I suppose, within the micronational community, which a lot of people kind of latch on to. And once you know about a mainstream micronation, and once a journalist knows about a mainstream micronation, well, as mainstream as micronations go, then it just kind of feeds on from that. And I think you could probably say this with some confidence, in that maybe like the most recent 2023 MicroCon, for example, you had some big names there. A lot of people will be familiar with Ladonia. A lot of people will be familiar with Westarctica or Molossia, or some of the bigger names there. But I can virtually guarantee that the smaller fish in the pond, if you like, regardless of who was there, who reported on what, on all the rest of it, they will remain small fish, because people aren't interested in the 30 other little minnow micronations that attend in these conferences. They're after the the big boys and girls that have that staying power and have that longevity. They want to report on them. They want to sort of publicize them more. And there are a few exceptions to this, I suppose. I think the most obvious example comes to mind is Slowjamastan. But this is a prime example of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about genuine micronations, and that they are about as meme-ish a micronation as it gets. I mean, I don't see how anyone could even argue otherwise. I'm sure there will be some that do, but they have the land, no question about that. They have fundamentally more resources, greater capacity, more media interest, more population than most micronations will ever attain. Have we approached them about some sort of formal affiliation or recognition? No, of course we haven't. Have you seen what they stand for? Have you seen what they're striving to do? Have you seen their imagery, the way they present themselves? It's just not us. It's not what we're looking to do. I'm not here to rag on anyone. I know it sounds like I probably am, because I'm naming all these micronations that we're not looking to affiliate with, or have no interest in affiliate with. But it's true. I mean, they've not approached us, and we've not approached them, because we're not looking to do the same thing. And I don't think it goes much more beyond that on that front. But our definition of what a micronation is, as I say, I think is the definition that a lot of people outside of the micronational community would think that a micronation was. It is a nation without recognition, but it is trying to attain that recognition. And anything less than that, frankly, we don't consider to be a micronation, or certainly not a micronation that's worth our time or energy exploring or trying to build relations with. I would sooner build relations with a micronation that aspires to attain land, that aspires to become more self-reliant or attain greater levels of self-determination, build real communities and establish a cultural identity, and appreciates and understands the values and objectives that we consider to be important. And when I talk about we, I'm talking about the wider Stomarian community, including our associated and observer states. Because we all share a common passion, a common drive, and common goals towards that end. We are all unique individuals. We all have unique identities. But we're still striving for the same thing. We're all part of this melting pot, a very small melting pot, but a melting pot nonetheless, of micronations that are trying to build something real and something genuine. And I as I say, I just don't think most micronations are into that, for one reason or another. And that's fine. I have a long-standing philosophy and a long-standing approach when it comes to the wider swathes of the micronational community, in that I just don't interact with it because I don't care. I'm not automatically hostile to everyone that's ever approached us to ask for recognition treaties, or to build some kind of relation, or people that want to question what we're doing or how we're doing it, or the rest of it. I don't. I'm not hostile to those that define themselves as micronations purely because they're micronations. But if they ask me to, delve into the history of their own respective micronation, if they keep asking me to intervene in this conflict that they're having with another micronation, or they want to offer their services where they'll be sending armed soldiers to protect our Discord server. I mean, these are genuine conversations that I end up having to have with the people that contact me. And the thing is, I am a lot more, as a lot of people know if they've actually met me, I'm very sort of affable, I'm very sort of courteous and polite, and I'm quite, I think, easy to talk to, I would say. But when it comes to sort of online dialogue, I can be incredibly, what was the word that was used? Dry, and very to the point. Because frankly, I don't have enough hours in the day to play nice with everyone that asks me, you know, these pointless and ridiculous questions and making these ridiculous inquiries. But I'm going off on a mad tangent, as I always do. But as I say, the definition of a micronation from our perspective is very straightforward. It is not an entity that claims sovereignty. It is an entity that strives to be sovereign in some way, in a legal, legitimate sense. I'm not talking about armed revolution or anything like that. I'm not even talking about anything majorly drastic. But micronations that are worth their salt from our perspective are ones that are looking to strive to become sovereign, to build something real, to build something genuine. And as I say, most micronations lack one or the other. They either lack the interest and the drive to do so, or they lack the resources to do so. So yeah, on that front, I'll leave it there, I think. But again, I wanted to ask the question myself, you know, what do you consider to be a micronation? Is it something along the lines of the definition that I've gone through at some length, or is it something else? Because you know, I know a lot of people will say something along the lines of micronationalism is a form of artistic expression and therefore it can be anything. And I think that basically means that micronationalism is nothing, frankly. It's nothing with a flag. So I'm one for, you know, trying to base my reality on objective truth. And what we are doing in reality is what I think is what a micronation is. And what a micronation is not just an art project to me. So, you know, with all of that said, if you should want to become a part of the Stomarian community, then please feel free to do so through our Patreon campaign, the link of which I shall leave in the description below as always. You can also find the details of the other micronations that make up Stomaria's empire in the description below as well. But otherwise, if you did enjoy the video, then please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.